Maybe we're all there is tonight, but we missed last week, if I remember correctly, though it seems like months ago. I have trouble with time these days. I don't know about all of you. Um, but we are in Ecclesiastes, and I have us at chapter 9, verse 1. Does that sound right, George?
Absolutely. That's where we're
All
going to
right.
start. Right.
Okay, good. Good. That's what I was hoping was the right spot.
Yep. You got it.
All right. Let me begin though by just going back up just a tad to chapter 8, verse 14. You might remember that I said occasionally in Ecclesiastes, more than a couple times, our author has a couple sentences which kind of has to do with his point. Every now and then you wonder, what is he talking about? What is the point of all this anyhow? Well, here's one of them. There is a vanity that takes place on earth, that there are righteous people who are treated according to the conduct of the wicked, and there are wicked people who are treated according to the conduct of the righteous. I said that this also is vanity. So I commend enjoyment, for there is nothing better for people under the sun than to eat and to drink and enjoy themselves. For this will go with them in their toil through all the days of their life that God gives them under the sun. So this is one of his main points, that life is mortal, and he gets to that again and again. But the righteous and the wicked, they don't seem to be treated any differently while they're alive. And it's all about vanity. And so we might as well enjoy what we have because this is what God gives us under the sun, kind of his poetic phrase for being alive. So we're going to skip down now to chapter 9, verse 1. And let's see how far we should go.
The basket there works.
Well, let's read the whole long piece the way they've set it up in their paragraph. Chapter 9, verse 1 through verse 6. Ronnie, would you like to start us off, please?
I will. For all this I considered in my heart, even to declare all this, that the righteous and the wise and their works are in the hand of God. No man knoweth either love or hatred by all that is before them. All things come alike to all. There is one event to be righteous and to the wicked, to the good and to the clean and to the unclean, to him that sacrificeth and to him that sacrificeth not. As is the good, so is the sinner, and he that sweareth, as he that feareth an oath. This is an evil among all things that are done under the sun, that there is one event unto all. Yea, also the heart of the sons of men is full of evil, and madness is in their heart while they live, and after that they go to the dead. For to him that is joined to all the living there is hope. Living for a dog is better than a dead lion. For the living know that they shall die, but the dead know not anything. Neither have they any more a reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. Also, their love and their hatred and their envy is now perished. Neither have they any more a portion forever in anything that is done under the sun. Whoa.
Well, that's going to cheer y'all up tonight, isn't it? In case you're feeling gloomy, now we can all laugh. That is gloomy stuff. But this again is one of his points that in verse 1 through verse 3a, the same fate comes to all. And he even says that twice. The same fate comes to everyone, and everything is in the hands of God. So you could say that he's a very religious man on one hand, in that everything is in the hand of God, and that we need to stand in the fear of God, and that things are gifts of God, and we need to consider the works of God in all what we do, because what we do is in the hands of God, whether we are righteous or unrighteous, whether we are wise or foolish, it's all ultimately in the hands of God. And then in the end of verse 1 and going into verse 2, everything that confronts them is, and my word here is vanity, but remember the word that is translated vanity could also be breath or vapor, or you might have another word there. And my study on it said, basically you can say everything that confronts them is everything. That it is what it is, kind of is the understanding. But I like the word breath. Everything that confronts them is breath, since the same fate comes to all, to the righteous and the wicked. So once again, he is stressing this point, that no matter how we live our life, and this again is Old Testament theology a long time ago, it all doesn't matter in the end, but what matters is how you live your life. Now, reflect on that for a minute, because that is a little bit different than Christian salvation theology, isn't it? Christian salvation theology is very, very concerned and stresses the afterlife, eternal life. Have you been saved? Have you confessed Jesus Christ to be your Savior? Because if you haven't, then you are not going to be saved, and you're not going to go to heaven. You will go to hell. So Christian theology sometimes sounds like it's more concerned about life after death than life during life. Now, Old Testament theology doesn't have, at least in Koheleth's time, did not have much of a thought or a theology about a resurrection, or about being raised from the dead, or about living after death. Their whole concept was one of you die and go to Sheol, and there was no other place that you went. So it therefore makes sense that he stresses what you do while you are alive, because the same fate comes to everybody. So you might as well enjoy yourself. It's a gift from God. Life is to enjoy yourself. And that's pretty much sums up those 3.5 verses. It's his real theological punch that he has to share with us. But he goes on in the next couple of verses that even though life is hopeless, basically, it's better than being dead. Better than being dead. It's best to be alive. A living dog is better than a dead lion. And the metaphor there is dogs were not very highly regarded. It's not like to say, oh, that you're a living dog is not a great compliment on life. The dogs were curly mutts, whereas a lion was a majestic creature and a powerful, the king of the jungle, or the king of the desert, or wherever this lion was in charge. So to say a living dog is better than a dead lion is to say a lot, to say a lot. Any thoughts or comments about some of those? I've kind of spoke overly long, but maybe you have some things to add. So it's best to stay alive and share of all the possibilities that happen under the sun, he says. Okay.
It'll only take a generation or so, and you'll be completely forgotten, actually.
Well, I think there's some truth to that.
I love these people who say, I'll never forget you, and I keep thinking, as long as I live.
or in some cases, as long as they live. But then,
Yeah.
but it does pass on. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's one of the truths under the sun. Um, our children are going to be able to do without us, probably, right?
Hmm.
Well, Marilyn, why don't you continue then? Why don't you do 7 through 10, just those verses?
Like, go eat your food with gladness and drink your wine with a joyful heart, for it is now that God favors what you do. Always be clothed in white and always anoint your head with oil. Enjoy life with your wife, whom you love all the days of this meaningless life that God has given you under the sun. All your meaningless days. For this is your lot in life and in your toilsome labor under the sun. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all of your might. For in the grave where you are going, there is neither working, nor planning, nor knowledge, nor wisdom. I have seen something else under the sun. The race is not the swift or the battle to the strong, nor does food come to the wise, or wealth to the brilliant, or favor to the learned, but time and chance happen to them all. Moreover, no man knows when his hour will come, as fish are caught in a cruel net, or birds are taken in a snare. So men are trapped by evil times. They fall unexpectedly upon them.
Okay, let's pause there. Once again, it's a fairly gloomy portrayal of life. And he would say, no, it's not gloomy. It's realistic. I think Kohaleth would say, if you are thinking it's gloomy, you're just putting your emotions in, because this is the way it is. This is the way life is. And so you might as well enjoy what you have. Enjoy the life, even though it's meaningless, even though it's not going to amount to anything or count for anything. You might as well enjoy it. And so the questions we have to ask is, what parts of Kohaleth do we agree with? Is it all pretty meaningless? Does it count for anything? He says that when you die, where you're going, there's no knowledge, there's no wisdom, there's nothing or work or thought there. What do we think about life after death, as it were? What is our conception of heaven? What is our conception about, does life and chance happen to everyone? Are we alive as long as we are until we fall off the apple cart? Can we, like he says, get caught in a net or a snare in such a sudden way you don't even know it happens? So those are the questions that he basically, or the reality that he poses, but then we in a different time and place have a right to question that reality that he poses. Say, why? Is that true?
Did you freeze the? No, I didn't.
Do we not, most of us, like to think that there's a little bit more to life than that? I mean, even while we're here, we're somehow making a difference while we're here. We try to make the world a better place. I know one of the Boy Scout rules of camping was to leave a campsite better than the way you found it, right? So you go in and you clean it cleaner than it was before you leave. And, I think that's why some of us recycle or want to drive a low carbon emission car or something, because we think somehow that's better for the world to do so. Or why you might be a member of a fire department because you feel like you want to help out, or be a teacher, or take in family members or friends that need help because you want to do your part to make the world a better place. Um, just in this room right here, we have all these things happening where we try and struggle to make life a little bit better around us.
I've often wondered what heaven would be like. For some reason or another, I can't see it as just walking around in this gauzy gown, not doing anything. I'm sure that the Lord has a lot of things lined up for me to do, as well as everyone else. But I just can't see it being a life of not doing anything.
Yeah. Yeah. You
I
kind
don't
of
know.
think, what's the point of that, right? Well, I can't help but think also of the difference between this theology that we're reading here and theology of Buddhism or Hinduism, where the life you're leading does really, really matter because it's going to have something to do with how you're reincarnated. And your hope as a Hindu or a Buddhist is that with each reincarnation, you're going to move closer ultimately, especially in Buddhism, to nirvana and to some sort of ultimate release from this life, which is about suffering. And so it's a very different theology that comes about in just another part of the world, not all that far away. So I'm often struck by the difference in that theology of reincarnation and this theology that when you die, that's it. There's nothing more, which is what this time Judaism was about, or Christian theology, which has a very sharp distinction between how you live and what you believe makes a difference about where you go after death. And there's no second chance, like in reincarnation. This is the chance that you have, and your actions have consequences. So it's a very different understanding of life, all these various theologies and religions. But having said that, it's not a bad idea to take to heart his words, which is to enjoy life. It doesn't mean to not do meaningful things, not do things that are significant, not have beliefs that are empowering, but to nevertheless enjoy what you do have is one of his things that he says over and over again.
This has always been one of Darius's favorite books, and I'm beginning to understand it, reading it, sitting here next to him, why. There's two types of personalities, and he and I contrast. He's the glass is half empty, and I'm the glass is half full. And I think this book is half empty. It's the whole way that it's presented. I mean, it's very true, but it's very hard to. I couldn't live that way, with all of that negative thinking that we keep reading.
Yeah, well, there's a gloomy reality to it, absolutely. that he professes over and over again, at least so far in our study. That does kind of stop you in your tracks, and you want to try to find a way to get beyond it, and look and say, well, where's the hope here? Is there any kind of hope he lifts up, for your life now or for the future? So we do kind of look for that, don't we?
I do.
Okay.
And there's only like 2 more chapters and it's like, okay, get to the good stuff. 3 more.
I would say we are in the good stuff.
Yeah, come on. Doesn't get any better than this, does it?
I like it.
It's great stuff. Well, my mother-in-law used to say, if you don't fall off the apple cart, then you might live a good, long, happy life. And that was that kind of parable, which is, he says, like a fish taking a cruel net and like birds caught in a snare. But we live in an age, don't we? And a day when without medicines and medical science, probably most of us, if not all of us, wouldn't be here right now. Most of us have probably been treated with antibiotics sometime in our life for some sort of infection, which, I don't know, 100 years or so ago, they didn't have. I've had 2 surgeries that without surgery, I would have died. I don't know how long ago, 100, 150 years ago, they probably wouldn't have done those surgeries. They wouldn't have known what to do. But we live in a time and an age where we can have those things. And so, our life goes on, right?
That's true.
Well, let's keep on going. George, are you there, my friend?
Yes, I'm here, Keith.
Well, do the rest of chapter 9, starting at verse 13.
All right. I also observed the following example of wisdom under the sun. It impressed me greatly. There was a small town with only a few residents. A mighty king came against it, surrounded it, and waged a terrible war against it. Now there lived in that town a poor but wise man who saved everyone by his wisdom. But no one remembered that poor man. So I thought, wisdom is better than might. But the wisdom of commoners is despised, and their words aren't heeded. The calm word of the wise are better heeded than the racket caused by a ruler among fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of war. One incompetent person destroys much good.
Okay, so what does this mean? How do you interpret this little story that he has told? He doesn't do many stories. This is, in fact, I can't remember any other stories that are quite like this one. But how do you interpret this story about this poor wise man who was not remembered?
Been nice if he'd told us how he did it,
Yeah,
how he delivered the city.
yeah. You're always looking for those goals and objectives there, Ronnie. It doesn't tell us, does it? Well, a great king is usually revered, right? A king is typically a rich, powerful individual and has power over people and authority over people. Whereas in the key word here, I think, is to be found in the adverb. I'm sorry, the adjective with our other person. So what's the adjective that makes the difference? You're on mute, Sherry, but you said poor.
Poor man, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the key to this story, I think, is that it's not a rich wise man. It's not just a wise man. Oh, the rich wise man down the street who we esteem greatly and who we revere and listen to. No, it's a poor wise man. It's a guy who's maybe makes his living begging or just tries to give truce to people. So it could be that there's a social class distinction here that he's calling attention to. No one remembers him because he was a poor wise man, and therefore he was unimportant. So Koheleth, though, feels that that's a problem, because in verse 17, he says, the quiet words of the wise are more to be heeded than the shouting of a ruler among fools. So he believes that they should listen to the wise. The quiet words of the wise, whether he's rich or poor, wasn't important. It's the fact that he had some wisdom, but the fact that he had wisdom didn't raise him in the esteem of other people in his city. They forgot all about him. So even being wise, is his conclusion, doesn't matter. It's all vanity.
The calm words of the wise. Yeah.
So the poor man's wisdom is despised. His words are not heeded. So it's even being wise doesn't give you credibility or save you, even though he believes that wisdom is better than weapons, which is an interesting way to put it, I think. Wisdom is better than weapons.
Oh. Quiet words the wise more than the shouts of
I think
ruler.
I think if our world would listen to that and say, yeah, wisdom is better than weapons of war, maybe we'd all progress a little bit more, but we don't. We still love our weapons of war, don't we?
Quiet words of the wise
I read an article today that if it weren't so pathetic and sad, it's amusing that India and Pakistan for like 30 years have been sending troops, young troops to guard this stretch of land up between India and Pakistan that is barren. There's nothing there. But both sides send people up to confront each other and stare at each other and to guard this turf of nothing. It's just, it's pretty ludicrous. Like I say, if it weren't so pathetic and sad, it's an amusing statement. Koheleth would say, yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about. Doesn't make sense, does it?
Keith,
Biden. That's the
Keith,
wise man.
Yeah.
at verse 17, you could change a couple of words in there. You could substitute a word for wise. I won't say what it would be. You could substitute a word for ruler. Or past it present.
Okay.
Am I getting through to you?
Yeah, you are, George. I hear you. I hear you. Yeah. Well, a lot of what Koheleth says is social commentary,
Yes.
and a lot of what he said probably comes from his direct experiences in his time and age, with probably religious leaders and authorities, with the priestly class, with scribes, with prophets, and with political leaders, the kings of the different territories and nations. So his commentary is certainly based upon those kinds of social and cultural experiences. Yeah, for sure. Well, let's see. Darius, hello, Darius. Why don't you read verse 1 through verse 7.
All right. As dead flies give perfume a bad smell, so a little folly outweighs wisdom and honor. The heart of the wise inclines to the right, but the heart of the fool to the left. Even as he walks along the road, the fool lacks sense and shows everyone how stupid he is. If a ruler's anger rises against you, do not leave your post. Calmness can lay great errors to rest. There is an evil I have seen under the sun, the sort of error that rises from a ruler. Fools are put in many high positions, while the rich occupy the low ones. I have seen slaves on horseback while princes go on foot like slaves.
Okay. So here we have a little commentary on fools and on folly. A little bit of study shows that dead flies make the perfumer's ointment give off a foul odor. It could even be a dead fly, like one fly can spoil the ointment, just like a little folly outweighs
in the
wisdom
ointment.
and honor. So once again, we're still having a commentary on the contrast between wisdom and foolishness, folly, fools and the wise. And the problem he sees is that folly, it can actually be more weighty than wisdom. Just like one fly can spoil a whole tub of ointment or something, so a little folly can spoil a whole amount of goodness. And I think he sees that in his culture, and I think we see it also. One fly can lead a lot of flies to the ointment. One fool can gather up a lot of fools and lead them into a different set of consequences.
I had the same.
And then things get turned topsy-turvy. And I think that's the meaning, if you will, about 5 and 6 and 7, is that when this kind of reversal takes place, when one fool or one small amount of folly can spoil so much goodness, then things have turned topsy-turvy, upside down, which is the fool in high places and the rich in the low place, the slaves on horseback and the princes walking on foot. The world has been turned upside down. And that's why that's why mobs, that's why fools, that's why, I don't know, in our day and age, things like conspiracy theories and end up having so much power and so much weight because they can lead, so many really good people astray and turn our world upside down. That's not a political commentary, by the way. That's just a cultural understanding of what happens in society sometimes. Why people follow a bully. Whenever you see a bully in either a movie or a TV program or in real life, aren't there 3 or 4 people following that bully? And they get their power from the bully. And that's the one fly gathering other flies around about. So Koheleth makes his social commentary here. He is a reviewer and a perceiver of culture and of people, and sees many things that other people probably do not see, and he calls them vanity under the sun. Okay, then follows a whole bunch of, I guess, I don't know, would you call them parables, or once again, they're these dualistic phrases So let's dig through some of them. Are you there on a line of sight, Janine? You still there?
She left the room. She's not here right now.
Elvis has left the building.
Has
Oh.
left. Do you want me to read her part here?
Yeah, would you, Darius? Read 8 through 15.
All right. Whoever digs a pit may fall into it, and whoever breaks through a wall may be bitten by a snake. Whoever quarries stones may be injured by them, and whoever splits logs may be endangered by them. If the axe is dull and its edge unsharpened, more strength is needed, but skill will bring success. If a snake bites before it is charmed, there is no profit for the charmer. Words from a wise man's mouth are gracious, but a fool is consumed by his own lips. At the beginning, his words are folly. At the end, they are wicked madness, and the fool multiplies words. No one knows what is coming. Who can tell him what will happen after him? You want me to read through 15? A fool's work,
Yes.
A fool's work wears him. He does not know the way to town.
Okay. So, again, this is just what reality. These are things that he sees. He sees people digging pits or building walls or quarrying stones or splitting logs, and he observes them. He observes these things, normal, everyday tasks of the people. He sees them happening. And his commentary is, you don't know what can go wrong. Things can go wrong at any time. And especially, for instance, he says, if you're splitting logs, but your axe is blunt, then you have to work harder and you risk more of hurting yourself because you work harder with a dull instrument. It's not a smart thing to do. And so wisdom helps one to succeed, which means that you sharpen your axe. So, it's a very realistic way to look at life, but he does indicate that if you are smart, then there are things that you can overcome. You can overcome, if you're digging a pit, you can be careful not to fall into it. If you're breaking stones in a quarry, you can be careful with the tool you're using, your sledgehammer. If you're building a fence, you can be careful not to have the fence fall on you or to watch for snakes. So there are things you can do in life to assure that you are not injured, to be careful. But then he goes on and he says this in verse 14, yet no one knows what is to happen, and who can tell anyone what the future holds? And that again takes us back to what he talks about earlier about the fish taken in the net or the birds caught in the snare, or my mother-in-law of us falling off the apple cart. You don't know what could possibly or potentially happen at any time that you have no control over. And I think that's his point there. We can probably all think of cases that have similarity to some of that, I always talk about, us all being careful when we get up on ladders. And I think he would, if he had seen us up on a ladder, he would say, and the fool gets up on the ladder and is not careful with their next step and so falls down or something, because you have to be so careful. But those are things we can take care of and be careful about. All right, you ready to move on? You got the idea? I don't know. Let's see. I always see you, Linda. I don't see if Bobby's there in the dark or not.
No, he's not here.
Okay. And Ron's on quiet. So Ronnie, I think we're back to you. Take us through to the end of chapter 10, starting at verse 16.
Woe to thee, O land, when thy king is a child, and thy princes eat in the morning. Blessed art thou, O land, when thy king is the son of nobles, and thy princes eat in due season for strength, and not for drunkenness. By much slothfulness the building decayeth, and though through idleness of the hands the house droppeth through. A feast is made for laughter, and wine maketh merry, but money answereth all things. Curse not the king, no, not in thy thought, and curse not the rich in thy bedchamber, for a bird of the air shall carry the voice, and that which has wings shall tell the matter.
Well, we're talking primarily about some political risks here, partially, are we not? The politics, the risks of being in a high place, being a king, in this case, and the people that you rule and that you deal with, and what kind of king you are, and the people under you. In this case, he calls them princes, the other noblemen under you. Any comments about any of this?
Yeah, you got to be careful what you post on Facebook, because if you do, it's liable to come back and bite you in the behind.
Well, that is for sure. That is for sure. Oh my.
What about the phrase that money answereth all things? That was a little.
Money meets every need. Well, it meets every need, but it doesn't necessarily make you happy, I suppose, Ronnie, right? Feasts are made for laughter, wine gladdens life, and money meets every need is my translation. So it feels to me like, once again, he's looking at the world around him and saying, the point of a feast is get together and have fun. Have fun at the feast. And wine should make you feel better. If you're drinking some wine, it should make your heart glad and take away some of your sadness. And if you have money, then you can go out and you can buy the food you want, you can buy the clothing you want, you can live in a place that you like. So I think he's once again very realistic in some of the things he states. But remember, he's told us over and over again that it's all vanity. You might be able to eat, drink, and be merry and enjoy yourself, but it's not going to last. It's not going to get you anywhere, because you're going to end up dead anyhow. But he doesn't have much good to say, though, about fools, or a sloth lets the roof sink in, and through indolence the house leaks. He's like, take care of things, take care of your life and your world. Don't be lazy. Don't be a dummy who sits around. Don't get drunk. Whatever.
I was curious about the bird on the wing may report what you say, be careful what you say. Well, is he speaking of a parrot or?
Well, I think, as Darius points out, he's thinking of Facebook there and Twitter. He's just a little ahead of his time is all. A bird of the air, that might just be the air, the wind taking your voice to the next door neighbor so they hear what you say. Got to be careful what you say, because your voice might carry further than you want it to. Your stage whisper might be too loud.
Some of these are really funny. Some of them are really funny.
Well, if you curse the king in your thoughts, or, do not curse the king in your thoughts, reminds me of totalitarian governments, like in Russia, the KGB. What
Oh,
did your
yeah.
next door neighbor say, or the Gestapo in World War II? You can't say anything, much less think anything negative, or you're gonna end up tortured in some prison cell.
So
So
that went on whole scale in Nazi Germany too.
yeah,
Children actually reporting their own parents,
Yeah.
young children that belong to those youth groups.
yeah, really, really tragic, huh? Yeah, yeah. All right, well, let's continue. I think this is in some ways a continuation of chapter 10, but we're now gonna change from politics or the political cultural scene a little bit different. So Marilyn, why don't you start us off and do 1 through 5.
Okay. Cast your bread upon the waters, for after many days you will find it again. Give portions to 7, yes, to 8, for you do not know what disaster may come upon the land. If clouds are full of water, they pour rain upon the earth. Whether a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where it falls, there will it lie. Whoever watches the wind will not plant. Whoever looks at the clouds will not reap.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Yeah, one more verse.
I can't find it.
Okay.
All
Just
right.
as you don't understand what life's breath does in the fetus inside a pregnant woman, so you can't understand the work of God who makes everything happen.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry,
what,
my
That's all right.
page was stuck together with
that's
another
all
one.
right. Not a problem. No problem. So what is the meaning of this section, do you think? How do you interpret these words, this poetry?
Well, and on verse 4, I know it just kind of jumped out in for us. It's like this individual's trying to be too safe, and he's not willing to take risk.
Right. Right.
Take
If
risks.
you're waiting
Life is
for
short.
the weather to be perfect, you might never sow, right? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. I think that's right. That's a good interpretation. And let's see, verse 3, we don't have control over the clouds or the rains or the wind. We can't control those things. And I think verse 2 at least has to do with good deeds. Do good things with your 7s and your 8s. That basically means with a lot of what you have. Do good things with that. Spread it out and share it. And that's kind of the idea of send out your bread upon the waters. Share what you have. Share what you have, because in some ways you will reap the rewards of that. In other words, your actions have consequences. And if you share goodness and you do good deeds, then you'll be paid back in some way. You'll reap the consequences of that goodness that you sowed. So there are some things that you can control. The first of those is by doing these good deeds, and that'll be good for you, your heart and your mind. There's something we can't control are the clouds and the weather, the wind. But if you wait for things to be perfect, you'll never get anything done. Even if you can't control it, you've got to risk it and take a chance. And then in verse 5, we don't understand life. We don't understand the world. We don't understand life and breath and birth. But we do know that this is the work of God who makes everything. So that's the word of faith. Now, remember last week, or I guess 2 weeks ago, I had shared a pretty long list of the things he said about God, and that God gives, and God is wise, and God shares, and God wants us to enjoy, and God makes everything. These are his understanding of how we are in the face of God. And our relationship to God is based upon how we understand the power and the authority of God, not how we understand our power and authority necessarily. So, these are pretty profound words, as we start to understand them a little bit. We can control our good deeds and we will reap benefits. We can't control certain things in life, but we have to then understand ultimately that it is God who makes everything, and all these things are the work of God. And earlier, of course, it's so enjoy your life, eat, drink, and enjoy, because it is from God that you have these things. Well, let's continue. Do verse 6 through 10, George.
Scatter, scatter your seed in the morning, and in the evening don't be idle, because you don't know which will succeed, this one or that, whether both will be equally good. Sweet is the light and pleasant for the eyes to see the sun. Even those lives, or even those whose lives, can't get it right, even those who live many years should take pleasure in them all. They should be mindful that there will also be many dark days. Everything that happens is pointless. Rejoice, young person, while you are young. Your heart should make you happy in your prime. Follow your heart's inclination and whether your eyes see, but know this, God will call you to account for all things. Remove anxiety from your heart, banish pain from your body, because youth and the dawn of life are pointless too.
Wow. So we're getting very close to the end here, are we not? And once again, this is not the first time he's talked about work, that work is something good and idleness is not beneficial. So to work in the morning, to work in the evening, maybe doing something different is a good thing, because you don't really know which is going to be offer the most benefit. So rejoice, take cheer, especially while you're young. Um, Follow the inclination of your heart. But, and this is, I think, maybe the first time we've seen this, I'd have to double check, but know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment. Now, that's an interesting thing. It's really the first time that we have heard this. And I honestly don't know. I'm not 100% sure what this really refers to, because this seems to be contradictory. But I think that the point here is that since God has given you everything to enjoy, that if you do not enjoy it, then that is your judgment. Your judgment you then receive for not enjoying it is God's judgment upon you. So the judgment is this life. It is as if God is saying, I have given you so much in life to enjoy, regardless of where it all goes. Therefore, enjoy what I have given you. If you do not enjoy it, then that's the judgment upon you. You will live in misery. You will live in unhappiness. You will live in despair. And that is your judgment upon you right now. And I think that's the way to interpret those particular words. At least that's where I'm at the moment. Well, and it's nice to be young, he says, but it's passing and it's fleeting. So enjoy it and make the most of it while you can. Well, we have one more chapter. So why don't we do this? We'll plan to finish that chapter next week and start something new. I think we can get to the end of the chapter and the end of the book without too much difficulty next week, and so we'll do that, and then start something new. Does anyone have any particular book of the Bible or a theme or anything that's beating on your heart right now that you'd like to suggest for us to do next?
Mm.
You know, when we read Ecclesiastes here, when I've read it, I see, for me, this is my interpretation of the whole Ecclesiastes, is that I see an elderly, rich man who's had a full life. He's in his last days, lying in his bed, and he has a reporter there or someone writing down his words, and he has all this time to reflect and reminisce about and have regrets of things that he could not do and he did not do and he wished he had done, and then reminiscing also about the good
Bucket
times.
list.
So when I read this, I see this individual. This is kind of how I see him. It's somebody in
Oh,
their
sorry.
days or their last hours or last days, and they're kind of having regrets or talking about many of the regrets that he has, but also reminiscing about a lot of the good times and how a person should, should enjoy themselves. So I mean, that's kind of how I see this myself, and it's like, who has this much time just to sit around and write down all of this? I just feel like he's confined, and he's just really getting into thinking about life and death and the good times, the bad times, the regrets. And so that was just kind of my take. I threw that in on that when I read this Ecclesiastes.
It sounds like a good take on it, Darius. Very possibly true. Because I think he does call himself at one point in time a king or a ruler. And so he probably is, and he is elderly, I think, and rich. So sounds like a good understanding. Yeah.
I said my one regret in life is that when the children were little, I didn't climb in the playpen and play with them and let the dishes go and the bed get made later on.
Yeah.
And if I had anything to say to a young mother, I'd say, enjoy them because the time goes very quickly
Yeah.
and then they're grown up.
Well, that's true. That's true.
As far as something to study, should we maybe get into something? We're coming up on Easter here that relates to, and
We
Easter.
could do you mean like Palm Sunday to the Holy Week, Palm Sunday to Easter kind of experience?
That kind of thing.
Yeah, we sure could. Does that sound good to other people? Whether we do it from one, that would all be gospel accounts from one gospel, or we could do a compilation of experiences.
Kind of like we did at Christmas, leading up to Christmas,
Right. Yeah,
But-
I'm good with that.
That's good.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right.
Yes. Does anyone know? I get a little confused and more forgetful than anything else about when we're supposed to put the drapes on the cross, what colors, and when we do that. I seem to forget that every year and get it confused. So.
Well, I think different churches might do it at different times, but some actually start on Ash Wednesday by putting a drape on a cloth. But
What-
certainly during Holy Week, usually wrap a purple drape around the cloth
Okay.
on Palm Sunday. Yeah,
And then we do the black on,
Good Friday
and then the white after that.
on Sunday, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Seems like I think I went and put the black on too early and I got a little criticism from that, I guess.
Well,
Maybe it was,
not to worry.
that was just the way I was feeling. I felt like I should put it on black on there. Maybe that was just,
Nothing wrong with that, Darius. Well, what are we've had a lot of prayers, a lot of concerns in the past couple weeks. Anyone want to bring anything up tonight? And then we'll ask Ronnie to close us with prayer.
yeah, I think Janine, our clock is going off, so, but I think Janine did mention this, maybe last night, that Morris Bird, Sherry, Maya, and Sherry and Mark, Sherry's brother, Mark,
Yeah.
Morris, yeah, I think she brought, okay, has COVID, and they feel like they might be a little concerned because of the elderly couple that they kind of take care of, might have been exposed, so let's hope not.
Right. Right. Okay.
Who else?
Well, I think we remember a bunch of them, but we'll keep everybody we can in our prayers. It was a good night, I thought, last night. I thought we accomplished some things. It was just simply good administratively to share with one another, and I appreciate everyone doing that. Ronnie, would you be good enough to close us with prayer, please?
Lord, again, we come together in your name and in your word. We thank you for the opportunity that you have provided for us to be able to study your word. Let it speak to our hearts and minds, help to guide and lead us as we go through this troubled world in which we live. Help us to truly see the happiness and the good that is all around, in spite of all of the evil that we hear. We lift up those, Lord, on our prayer lists, those lifted up tonight. Pray that you be with each and every one in your own way and in their own way as the will that you have for their lives. We pray for healing and place them in your hands. Lead, guide, and direct us as we go through the days ahead until we gather again on Sunday. For it's in your name we ask. Amen.
Amen.
All right.
Well, thank you, everybody. Good to see you as always. And have a good couple days, and then we'll see you Sunday.
Okay. All right. Be safe, everyone.
Did you doodle more today?
Oh, me? That's all I do. Eventually I'll get one right.